Pablo Escobar was the leader of the Medellin Cartel for over a decade, and by the 1990s, everyone wanted him dead. The U.S. government, rival cartels, the Colombian government, and even ordinary citizens had put a price tag on Escobar's head. However, finding Pablo Escobar and getting him dead or alive proved to be a challenge. He was elusive to everyone and managed to stay hidden. That was until he made a ridiculous error. This ridiculous mistake ended up costing his life. So what happened on that fateful day of December 1093? How did Don Pablo get assassinated? Let's find out in today's video. The circumstances in which Pablo Escobar died just shows how cruel life can be. Just a day before he died, Don Pablo was celebrating turning 44. He felt free and had been on the run, since he had been on the run for quite some time now. From 1983 to 1991, the drug lord played an elaborate and mostly violent game of hide-and-seek with the Colombian government, resisting every attempt at extradition to the U.S. Escobar killed thousands of civilians, ordered the execution of some 250 Medellin policemen, snuffed the lives of two major Colombian politicians, kidnapped the daughter of a former president, and blew up a civilian airplane in 1989 after wrongly believing that another uncooperative politician was on board the plane. Escobar's guiding principle had always been a bribe or a bullet, and soon enough the Colombian state were forced to strike a bargain with the drug lord. Escobar would not be extradited if he agreed to surrender himself and do jail time in Colombia. However, he was also permitted to build his own prison, La Catedral, a luxurious prison built by him for himself. However, Escobar's time with La Catedral would be cut short after he executed two of his henchmen in cold blood on prison premises and right under the nose of the Colombian authorities, who were supposed to be guarding him. Of course, there was an international outrage, and the Colombian government would move to extradite him to the U.S., but Escobar escaped just in time, becoming a fugitive once more. Over the span of 16 months, he found himself shuttling between countless haciendas he owned all over Colombia. These were the very same haciendas that had housed his family while he was in a custom-made prison, and now he was here in his final hours, celebrating his birthday alone. Now, hours before his death, Escobar tried to reach out to his family. This is one important part of the story, as you'll soon find out. You see, at the time, the family were reportedly being held hostage by the government. This means that their phone calls were being monitored. But how did they get here, and why weren't they with Escobar? Well, it had everything to do with the countless enemies Escobar had made over his illustrious narcotics career. On one hand, there was the search block, the vengeful arm of the Colombian government specifically trained by the United States to find and capture the drug kingpin. On the other hand, there was the arguably more dangerous Los Pepes, a group of vigilantes sponsored by rival cartels who are hell-bent on wiping Escobar, his family, and associates from the face of the earth. While the drug lord was hiding, these enemies went off to Escobar's family and they were forced to flee the country. Escobar had already escaped La Catedral, and the Colombian government were unwilling to protect his family if he wouldn't surrender himself to the law. So Escobar's family chose Germany as their asylum. However, Germany rejected them. The rejection shocked everyone, especially Escobar the drug lord was so shocked the days before his final hours, he sent someone to drop a tape at a radio station in Medellin where he calmly scolded the European country. Escobar's family would eventually find themselves back in the hands of the Colombian government, who had now chosen to use them as bait to smoke out the elusive drug lord. No wonder Escobar had become so anxious in his final days. There was a ticking time bomb hovering over his family. They were unsafe, and as much as anyone might have tried to avoid the topic, the fact was it was Escobar's fault. The final day. On the 2nd of December 1993, Escobar woke up to a meal of spaghetti cooked by his aunt. After the meal, Escobar picked up his phone and dialed his family. While this was going on, the infamous search block had gotten wind of his phone call and had begun triangulating to get the exact location of El Padrino. Now, the search block and Don Pablo were involved in a bloody war. The search block was headed by Colonel Hugo Martinez and comprised 200 Colombians who were non-natives of Medellin and didn't know each other or the city. However, it was a suicide mission for Colonel Martinez because Pablo practically owned Medellin. In the first 15 days of his command, Escobar killed 30 of the colonel's 200 men, and after this, Escobar tried to bribe the colonel. But the man couldn't be bribed, so Escobar threatened the colonel's family. Colonel Martinez responded by waging an extensive war against the King of Coke. Over the years, Martinez's task force managed to isolate Escobar by dismantling his Medellin drug cartel and conducting round-the-clock electronic surveillance of the kingpin's radio communications. However, there were rumors that the search block weren't acting alone. In this last mission, rumor had it that a group called Los Pepes was also involved in the hunt, and in fact they were the reason Escobar sought the safety of his family in Germany, since they had been hunting down the associates of the drug lord. Los Pepes was ruthless. They publicly offered cash rewards for information on Pablo and his key associates and began broadcasting threats against the drug lord's family. They were involved in the destruction of 2 haciendas that belonged to Hermilda Gaviria, Escobar's mother. They also mailed bombs to many of his close associates. At the top of this mayhem, Los Pepes publicly hanged Escobar's sicarios, thinning his defenses. Martinez's search block might have been the bane of Escobar's existence, but it was Los Pepes that brought death to his doorstep. Everything was now in place. Escobar was a fugitive in hiding, with no place to run as all his assets were seized. His family were under the thumb of the government with 24/7 surveillance. Escobar had made an incriminating call to said family, and the search block and a super deadly group committed to the annihilation of Don Pablo were reportedly working hand in hand, triangulating the phone signal to end the reign of terror of this monster once and for all. It was the final minutes of the world's most powerful and influential drug lord, and it was certainly going to be a showdown. On Team Red, we have Escobar communicating with his son on the phone, and on Team Blue, we have the leader of the search block, Hugo Martinez, communicating with his own son, who had the task of tracking down the location of Escobar. It was a father-son standoff, though was about to be written in blood. It was Martinez's son that saw Escobar first, a shadow of his former self. The drug lord looked nothing like the clean-cut, mustachioed figure that everyone had come to fear over the years. It took the search block a very short amount of time to get to the neighborhood. Mere minutes after Escobar had made the call, they arrived at his location. In fact, Escobar was still on the phone when he realized that his aunt's building was surrounded. Everyone was fully armed. They were expecting heavy gunfire from the drug lord's army of cartel soldiers. However, they would spot just his bodyguard. El Limon, who had abandoned his boss, was running out of the building and fleeing to the rooftops in a bid to save his life. He was immediately killed. Then the search block stormed the house and blew the front door open with explosives. Escobar greeted them with gunfire and took off for the rooftops too, in an attempt to escape to a side street behind the row of houses, but he never made it. He found himself cornered on the rooftop, and in a bid to save his life, he opened fire on the search block and the Colombian police. The search block returned fire, and he fell flat. According to an official account, an unnamed member of the search block got close to Pablo and gave him the fatal shot that killed him. Just 24 hours ago, he was celebrating his 44th birthday, but now he was dead. Escobar's death a suicide? Now, Escobar's entire family don't believe El Padrino was killed. According to them, Escobar killed himself. His brothers Roberto Escobar and Fernando Sanchez Arellano insisted that his death had been by suicide, claiming that the location of his fatal wound was enough proof it had been self-inflicted. Now, they weren't at the shootout scene, so they could be wrong. However, the most compelling evidence is that of Sebastian Marroquin, Escobar's son. Sebastian was the one whom the drug lord was talking to in the moments before he died. According to Sebastian, his father was well aware their phones were tapped and monitored by the CIA and the Colombian authorities. He also says his father had told him repeatedly in the past to avoid phones. On the day his father called, Sebastian says he declined the call 7 times because of the apparent danger, but his father insisted on speaking with him. Another clue that Sebastian brings to the table is the fact that his father had taught him in the past how to commit suicide if they were ever captured. He had told his son to shoot himself in the right ear, and can you guess where the gunshot wounds were on Escobar's body? His leg, his torso, and his right ear. So what do you think? Did Pablo Escobar kill himself in a bid to avoid getting captured, or was he assassinated? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.